Carlos Vera, thank you very much for joining me here on Slap News. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm very excited to have you on. I know you were just part of The Ultimate Fighter season 31. Can you give me a quick, 60, 90-second background of how you got into this, how you started at MMA, and kind of how your career has progressed?
Sure, man. My name's Carlos Vera. I was born in Ecuador, South America. Grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. And as a kid, I started Taekwondo. And I took it very seriously, competed in the, national and international scene. I did Junior Olympics. I continued to train Taekwondo. And at 19, I started Capoeira. And then in my early 20s, I went to go see, I was like 22, I think 23. We went to go watch an MMA show. A buddy of mine named Tom Lee, who was the former featherweight champ for ONE FC, and we're like, man, I think we moved just as good, if not better, than some of these guys. And then, sure enough, we started we took an amateur fight, and at that moment in time, we started doing jiu-jitsu, and that was it, man. That was really, we were hooked. We both won our first fights in under, I think, 30 seconds with knockouts, and it was just a continued dedication and discipline from there on out. And I mean, we fought on a lot of regional scenes. I moved to Falls Church, Virginia, about 5 years ago, so that I could train under Ryan Hall to really get my jiu-jitsu better. And he's helped out tremendously with, honestly, with just like everything. His mind is very sharp. And I signed with Fury about right after COVID. And Fury FC is based out of Texas, but they fight all over the place. And I went 4-0 with Fury. And literally right after that fourth win, I got the phone call to if I was interested on going on TUF. And that's the end of the story, man. So yeah, here we are today.
Awesome, my man. How long was that journey? How long did you cut your teeth on kind of that amateur scene? And really, what was the inspiration and motivation behind for you to continue to go on?
So the amateur journey was 2012 to 20. I think it was like 2.5 years. But it was I trained like a pro. So even though I had a full time job, but I trained like a pro. I trained 2 to 3 times a day every day. So I just wanted to gather experience in competing and in fighting different styles. Again, I was a striker, and I fancied myself a striker. So whenever I went down to the ground, it was always a little bit of a more of a chess game for me. I really had to learn how to deal with that, and I just had to continue to compete and compete and compete. And I went 10-4 as an amateur, and then going pro. I mean, you have to start off on regional scenes. You have to start off on local scenes, then regional scenes. Then you'll get your shot. You make your name. You get some wins. You have some losses. And if you're an exciting fighter, bigger promotions are going to look for you. So, I fought for other bigger promotions like LFA and Shogun. And I definitely fought for one of the bigger organizations in New Orleans at the time, which was RMMA. And yeah, once that happened, I was ready for the bigger shows. And, that's when Fury gave me a call. And, like I said, LFA had given me a call, and I was ready to compete on that platform versus the more local scene with more local fighters. But you have to start somewhere. And the hard thing is sometimes big fighters that get released, they have to kind of go back to a regional scene, not necessarily a local scene. They have to go back to a regional scene, and they have to kind of work their way back up.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is your biggest career highlight to date?
Uh, well, I mean, I would say for sure the show, right? The show, just getting on the show, landing on the show, because this
Mhm.
was a tough season. You guys have seen it's UFC vets versus prospects. I think it was really cool that I was considered. I think I was like top 20 in the nation at the time, or maybe a little higher. But that in itself was a great accomplishment. I was very thankful for that. I think my one of my career highlight KOs was my first pro fight in the United States, because my actual first pro fight was in Brazil. My second pro fight was in the States, was in New Orleans, and I did a big spin kick knockout that you see in Van Damme movies, and I knocked the dude out cold. And I think he was. I don't think he ever woke up from the cage. He actually had to be taken out on a stretcher. But that was a big one. And then I think each one of my fights on Fury, I'm not from the Texas area, so I've always been placed with some really good competitors in the Texas scene. And, little by little, I've been proving everybody wrong or proving myself right. And, my last 2 wins have been by the guillotines. And I showed up with my jiu-jitsu and my kicks. And I think, honestly, my 4 fights at Fury, like they have been like career highlights. You can really see that I'm somebody who's that you should definitely train to fight me. I'm not just a bum.
Awesome, dude. Let's talk about the show a little bit.
Sure.
Getting selected, obviously, as you said, a very big accomplishment. Let's talk a little bit about actually getting there, getting into the apex. What is kind of that feeling? Like, what is it like? Give us kind of the behind the scenes of what it really feels like. Is the show as it's depicted and edited and cut of what the viewers see on TV? Or do you feel like it's a very different story actually being there, and maybe the storylines may not be as exaggerated as they make them be?
Actually, I think the storylines are less exaggerated than they are. I think we went through a lot, and I think because it's on ESPN now, and we have a specific time frame to finish these shows, along with commercials, they really minimize it. I'm in a group chat with everybody who was on the show, and we're all pretty, I would say, surprised that they haven't showed the drama that really was there. There was a lot more drama that they have shown that they haven't even talked about. So, but going to the apex, man, it was what the show depicts. We were locked in a hotel room for almost 2 weeks, and we didn't know if we were going to be selected for the show. We were told that we were there for the show, but as soon as we got there, they're like, man, there was over 30 something people there, almost 40 people. They're like, only 16 of you guys are going to be selected for the show. So we had to quarantine for, I think, almost 2 weeks. And at that time, they were, they had us doing mitts. They were giving us interviews. They were seeing if we were on weight. They were seeing all kinds of things. And I think little by little, and obviously we had our medicals. They were seeing who could, be part of the show. And a lot of people started dropping like flies every day. So we hadn't really trained with anybody. All we did was we had a slot in a hotel workout area where everybody just ran on the bike, ran on the treadmill or used the bike and did a little weights. And that was our training for 2 weeks, man. We didn't get to roll, do much, except for the mitt work that they had us do, and they would kind of analyze a little bit. But then when we stepped into that apex, man, keep in mind, we're prospects. So some of us had already fought there for the Contender Series, but none of us have really, have gone under there under, these big lights. So it was exactly what you feel. I remember standing there, and all of a sudden we're waiting to see the, Dana and Chandler and McGregor. And sure enough, we can hear them in the background. We're like, whoa, this is real. And when they slid open the doors and we see them, we're like, whoa, this is cool. It kind of solidifies our hard work and our dedication, and it got us to a really cool place. But every day we would go to the apex, man. Eventually it became like a home for us, because that is exactly where we train twice a day. And it became kind of I feel like, honestly, we probably know the apex way more than a lot of UFC fighters, because we literally we trained there, we fought there every day. So it was an interesting experience, man. When I left there, I was like, okay, I'll see you again, apex. It's kind of like the Coliseum. I'll see you again. But it was a great experience, man. It really was.
Absolutely, man. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Connor in Venice Beach one time, and there's definitely a sense, an aura that he brings along with him. Very curious what you thought of the first time that you met him, and kind of what was that emotion like?
The first time that I met him, man, I didn't know what to expect. he's such a big star, dude. He's such a big star. Like, he goes beyond MMA at this point.
Hmm.
So, but he was actually really humble, really nice, like down to earth. He turns it on when he's got to turn it on. He knows how to be the showman that he is, but he's actually very much a team player, and people will, talk, because people can talk and call him a bad coach, but in reality, he motivated us more than many people. Ever. So he
Hmm.
was a great guy to be around, and a lot of times he is the persona that he shows on the show also, and in the spotlight. But I think overall it was kind of a breath of fresh air to meet him and to realize he's a regular guy like we are, man. But at the same time, he's not. But he
Yeah.
knows how to, he knows how to, and he knew how to connect with us.
Totally. I mean, regular human being with an extraordinary skill set
Yeah,
and the understanding of marketability for sure.
100%.
Uh, Sitting here today, are you looking back on that whole experience with positivity, or is there still a bit of, a sting from the overall experience?
It's positivity, man. I think it's your choice as to how you look at something. Uh, could I look at it as a sting? Sure. Uh, it wasn't the easiest run around. I mean, we're stuck in a
Hmm.
house, no connection with our family, no music, no books, no TV. And it's 16 dudes who are edgy. They
Hmm.
had to cut weight, different backgrounds, different sleep cycles. Like, some people are up first thing in the morning, some people go to bed really late at night. It was stressful at some points. And
Hmm.
not just that, but you go from I train every day, man. I train 2 to 3 times a day, and I'm used to my type of training. So getting used to other people's type of training, obviously training was always fantastic, but um, just having to adjust, that was difficult.
Hmm.
And you have to roll with the punches. So
No,
that was definitely a shock. But I look back, man, and I grew so much. I learned so much, and I was surrounded by amazing people. So it's nothing but a great learning opportunity that I had got.
totally, man. Definitely going to appreciate that. If you can have a second opportunity to face your opponent in a power slap match, would you want to do it, and would the outcome be different?
Uh so because of how I fight, I'm not one that I don't. If you watch my fights, you'll notice that I train how I train and I fight how I fight in order not to get hit. Some people like to get hit, man. I don't like to get hit, so I try to fight like a ninja so that I hit you, but you don't hit me. So that being said, I mean, why not? I mean, we do fight professionally, and that would be a first time for me. So that would be cool. Now, how I would do or how he would do, dude, I have no idea, man. I assume there's a lot of technique to a big B slap, but I'd have to ask. I have a buddy of mine who does power slap. He's from New Orleans. His name's Jules Scott. I'd have to ask Jules, man.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to give me the goes, the ins and outs.
Awesome, man. I mean, Jules Scott seems to be a local celebrity. We've talked to him actually a number of times, but any of the MMA guys that we talk to seem to know Jewel across the board. Definitely
Yeah,
seems to be an OG in that scene for sure.
for sure.
What's your overall thoughts of slap fighting? I know you kind of said that you're a ninja. You may not want to get hit. Overall seeing the growth in the last 6 months of the sport. I'm sure you've probably seen all the viral TikTok videos and stuff
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
What's kind of your sentiment? Where do you see it, and do you think there's a spot, in kind of the combat sports world for it?
I think it's interesting. I think when I first saw it, I thought it was a little jokey, a little gimmicky. Um, but like anything, if you do it for long enough, I mean, look at arm wrestling. Arm wrestling must have been
Hmm.
the silliest sport ever at one point, right? And then all of a sudden, it also became a sport, and I think it will develop with time. The more you do it, the more you are going to learn how to potentially take a blow, and and take more heat off the blow. You're going to learn how to transfer weight better. So there, man, the world is a wild place, and there's a space for anything and everything if
Hmm.
if you give it enough time and dedication. I will say this. when we were on the house, I think most MMA fighters to start off with, they're like, power slap, man. What do you have to have for power slap? It's not like you don't need all the skills that you need for MMA. But since we didn't have TV, the only time they would bring a TV was for the MMA fights on the weekends, and we would watch it as a group, or the power slap. And I'll tell you what, man, it was entertaining. We sat there, we watched it from start to finish, and you could see the hype, the momentum. It was interesting to watch, man. I would watch it again. So we'll leave it at that. I just don't know enough about it, the technique. But there is a place for it, I believe. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great to hear, man. I mean, obviously it's had, it's been very polarizing in kind of the early onset. And, Dana continues to talk about going through the struggles and the growing pains that he went through with the UFC, 20 years ago also. So, seeing the sport actually evolve in front of our eyes from, the Road to the Title series, which aired, on TBS in January, to where we are now, Power Slap 3, that, the technique, as you were talking about, the, adapting some skill sets and strategies we're seeing unfold in front of us. And it's still such a young sport that it is going to grow. And, Jules Scott has been a big innovator, actually, of the sport. And, his specific strike, I'm not sure if you recall or not, but it's very much like a Mike Tyson right hook is kind of where he pulled the inspiration from. Through all of your training where you've been, I know you said you competed in the United States, you also competed in Brazil. Is there anything in your background or training that you noticed that could potentially transfer over to power slap to be able to take or give a slap more efficiently?
What's funny is you'll see viral clips of me training with Connor because of capoeira, and you'll see him like kind of moving my shoulders. And I have trained in capoeira for over, I think like 15 years now. And your ability to use the momentum of your rocking of your body and combine the momentum of your individual rotation along with the drive. I think there might be something there. I think that might be able to translate, and not just that, but the same way that you hit somebody with your movement would be the same way that you take heat off an attack in capoeira. You move with the grain versus kind of meeting it head on or like a big check. So, if there's one way that you could potentially adapt to getting hit, maybe taking some heat off, I'm sure that's already being talked about and being worked on. But, when you get hit, you don't want to get hit full impact. You want to be able to get hit and potentially, maybe move your chin a certain direction. I'm not sure, man. It's such a new sport, right? But I definitely think there could be something there, your ability to move your body in certain ways and finding your own rhythm. Maybe your ability to find your rhythm and being able to strike at a certain time just empowers your slap. I'm not sure. There's a lot to think about there.
Yeah, you know what, man? You actually probably gave one of the best answers that I've ever received from asking, an athlete outside of the sport. To be honest with you, and it's very interesting to me. Like with your capoeira background, do you believe that you should, continue with the momentum through the target? Or I know you kind of touched on potentially kind of letting up and trying to stop on the target. Anything you can share on that side?
I don't think there's ever going to be a black and white in martial art, man. I think every specific moment is individual. Sometimes when people get hit, they tend to give you three responses. They either stay put, they move forward, or they move backwards. So a lot of times when they move forward, and if you hit and meet, there's like a recoil where your attack goes backwards. So maybe if you can feel that and go with the rhythm backwards, or a lot of times if you hit them, they'll like kind of bump backwards. So that time you kick through or you punch through or you hit through. I think it's the sensibility that you have on the strike itself. And I think that's why just drilling and practicing is so important, but being mindful of what's happening. So when you hit this person, it's not just bam, I got you. It's like, bam, I got you, but do I feel some pushback? So what do I do next? Bam, I got you. Oh, I feel like my fist is going through. Oh, so I keep going forward. Oh, you stayed put. So maybe you do something else. So, again, like it's just a matter of, I think the opponent moment and what you're doing at the time.
Awesome, my man. This is incredible. Great. This is really great stuff, dude. Honestly, I appreciate you taking the time, sharing your insight. The fans of Slap Fighting right now are a very hardcore, passionate group. Where can they follow you on social media, my man, and whatever you do coming up in your career?
Of course. I am Carlos Vera MMA. So at Carlos Vera MMA on Instagram, at Carlos Vera MMA on Twitter, and at Carlos MMA on Facebook. So it's very, very easy. Carlos Vera MMA. Just follow me in all three. And I'll be, keeping up with Power Slap as well. And like I said, my buddy's on there. So I want to see him do well. And, nothing but hopefully we have nothing but good news coming forward.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you. You got a fan in me. Take care, dude.
Thank you, brother.